Hello, and welcome to the stream tonight. So, as a quick catch up, where did we get to? I didn't stream on Friday because I was looking after my children. So I wasn't able to do a stream on Friday because I didn't think having a 2-year-old in tow would be very useful. So we're back. Normal streaming this week, so I should be streaming both. I am streaming tonight, and I should be streaming on Friday as well. In terms of what I've been working on recently, I'm now at a point where I have completed the initial set of work that I wanted to do as a result of the output of Cake.Add Discoverer. So I've spoken about Cake.Add Discoverer a few times on this stream now. It's a utility tool made by a community member called Jericho. And basically what it does is it audits all of the known Cake add-ins that have been published to NuGet.org. So every time it runs, it will find all of the add-ins, or rather, more specifically, it will go to NuGet.org. It will find all of the NuGet packages that start with Cake. And it will then run through them and then audit them to see what state those packages are in. And what I mean by that is it will check to see what version of Cake that package is referring to. It'll check to see whether it's using the recommended icon. It'll check to see whether the GitHub repository associated with that package has been removed, transferred to the Cake Contrib organization on GitHub. It'll specify whether it's using kind of the recommended best practices in terms of using a license expression within the NuGet package, whether it's using a repository URL within that NuGet package, and various other things. And the first thing that I wanted to check for was whether or not the GitHub repository that backs the package is, if it's using Cake.Recipe, which is a set of convention-driven scripts that I and a number of other people have had a hand in creating, whether or not that repository is using the latest version of Cake.Recipe. Now, maybe, I forget what it is now, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, we shipped version 1.0.0 of Cake.Recipe. Now, prior to that, the recommendation had been for a repository to not pin to a specific version, but rather to pull the latest version of Cake.Recipe from MyGet. And that was fine, because we didn't have a released version. Now that we have a released version, I wanted to make sure that everyone who I knew was using Cake.Recipe was pinned to a specific version. So, it's down at the bottom here, of the 116 add-ins that are using Cake.Recipe, almost all of them are now pinned to either the released version of Cake.Recipe, which is 1.0.0, or the slightly newer one that I pushed within the last week or so that has a bug fix and a new feature that I was playing around with. So the ones that aren't pinned, the ones that are still red here, they have an open pull request into the repository to move that repository along to that. So I'm in a much more comfortable position now where I am happy to start breaking things in Cake.Recipe. The reason that I was hesitant before is because I didn't want to pull in changes that I knew would cause impact to anyone that was currently pinned to a pre-release version, because they would just get the latest version whenever they next ran the build. So now that 116 of those repositories are now pinned to the recommended version, I'm now happy to start breaking stuff, right? Now, I still have lists that I'm working through for Add-in Discoverer. For example, if I clear this data, and look at if I look at ones that are not currently pinned to the recommended version of Cake itself, then there are still 98 that are not pinned or haven't been compiled against the newer version of Cake itself. So I am going to be working through that list. So this is actually 2 lists. Let's do it the other way. If the repository behind that add-in has been transferred to Cake.Contrib organization, I'm in a position where I can help out and excuse me, I'm in a position to help out and make those changes directly. Now, I've already reached out, for example, to Alistair here and Jeffrey, so I know that both of their repositories are in a position that I can make those changes directly. They're happy for me to make those. So at some point, I will be able to get that list down to... So they've got 8 add-ins between them. So I'll be able to get those ones updated. And I'm then going to reach out to the other maintainers on this list to see whether they need some help. I know that, for example, Cake.Packet and Cake.Packet module, they're already being worked on by various maintainers. So hopefully this list, which is 17, should hopefully get down quite quickly. The other list that I'm going to start working on is the ones that are not currently transferred to Cake.Contrib. So this is a bigger list. There's 81 add-ins. Now, a lot of these, based on the output of Cake.Add-in Discoverer, a lot of these are known to have open pull requests, and a lot of those pull requests came from Cake.Add-in Discoverer itself. So one of the functions that Cake.Add-in Discoverer has is the ability to raise a pull request when a non-compliance, if you like, with the best practices has been found. So if we look at one of these, for example, that has a open pull request, if I can get my mouse to work, then Cake.Minicover has an open pull request. So if we look at that, then what we'll probably find is that pull request came from Add-in Discoverer, which it did, and then in here it will be attempting to fix the issues that it's found, whether it's updating to the latest version of Cake, fixing the package icon URL, and so on. So this one was opened over a year ago. So there's a high chance that this maintainer is no longer able to maintain this, or doesn't want to maintain that. So the other list that I'll be working through is to try and get in touch with this maintainer and see if they would want to move it into the Cake.Contrib organization, so that other people can help out and keep this add-in up to date. I'd much rather that than it kind of sit and not do anything with it. So that's what I'll be working on. But the topic of tonight's stream, if my voice holds out, is to look at starting to break Cake.Recipe. So if we look at the Cake.Contrib repository for Cake.Recipe, hello Brett, how's it going? The topic of tonight's stream is really to start to break Cake.Recipe. Now, if we look at the open pull requests, oh, excuse me, it's going to be an interesting night. If we look at the open pull requests in this repository, then you'll see that a lot of them have been marked as on hold. The reason they've been marked as hold is for everything that I've just described. I didn't want to take any of these pull requests until I was in a position where I felt comfortable releasing Cake.Recipe, or a new version of Cake.Recipe, into the wild. So that's why a lot of these, so there was 17, a lot of these are effectively on hold, right? And now that I'm happy that I've pinned all of the active projects to the release version of Cake.Recipe, we can start pulling some of this stuff in. So I see that Pascal is in the chat room. Pascal is one of the main contributors to Cake.Recipe, so he has a vested interest in watching what I'm doing here, I guess. I also invited Kim along to the stream because he's another big user of Cake.Recipe. So I'm hoping to get some input from both of those on how to move forward. But before we can do any of that, we need to start building the next major version of Cake.Recipe. So what I mean by that is, if we go over here, I'm going to close this now because we don't need this anymore. And we say don't save. If we go over to app there, and we look at, we get logged in. Am I doing the password? Or is it going to know who I am? It knows. So if we look at Cake.Recipe, then look at the history, then currently the released version of Cake.Recipe is 1.1.0, which is great because that's that's kind of working along December. So I released, oh my goodness. Apologize about this. I've literally just come off of I had the flu. I thought I was over it, but obviously not. So we released 1.0.0 of Cake.Recipe. I then released a bug fix, which was 1.0.1, and then I added a new bit of functionality, which was 1.1.0. So all of those things are progressing along nicely. However, I want to start working on the next major version of Cake.Recipe, which is a 2.0 release, and I want my builds to reflect that. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to start to control the next version number. So if we go into our repository and open up code, then what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to control the next version number that's getting generated, and we can do that through a YAML file in the repository. Now, we build Cake.Recipe with Cake.Recipe, and Cake.Recipe uses Git version under the hood to assert the next version number. And it does that based on the history of the repository, unless there's a compelling reason to do something other. So, all of that being said, if I go in, let's just do a build here so that we can make sure that this is all still building the way we expect it to. So if this build works, we should assert a new version number. So because we released version 1.1.0, I would expect us to be building 1.20 beta version, or alpha version, sorry. So let's see what actually got asserted. So if we go back up here, then so that slightly surprises me, but I think it's also the case because I haven't got a new commit ahead of the latest tag. It's still building off of that tagged version rather than the next version. But regardless, we don't want to be building a 1.2 release. We want to be building a 2.0 release. So the way that we're going to control that is by looking at the Git version documentation. And if we do that, and we look at I saw it in there, we look for version incrementing, I think it said. If we look at this, then what we should be able to do is we should be able to specify a next version property in the YAML file. So we go in here and grab that name. I say copy, and we go over here and we create a new file with that name. Missed an L at the end. We do that, then there's a YAML file, so it's literally just going to be next version, and then what we're going to want to do is simply specify it, I think. But let's just check again. Yeah. So if we just then start with that, then the next time we build it, now that I've built that, I don't have to build the whole thing. I should just be able to go into our tools folder, look for the tools, and then look for Git version. I run that, then we started doing it. So we're now building the next major version of Cake.Recipe, which is going to be 2.0. So that helps in terms of keeping all the generated new packages in the right version number scheme, and we can move forward with that. So I'm going to go ahead and check that out. So we go in here and just say build, start building 2.x of Cake.Recipe. I might have to call it short tonight, because I wasn't really expecting to feel this bad. I kind of thought I was over the worst of it. If we do a git push upstream, and let's just check to make sure that that is building as we expect it to on AppFair. Then that's at least one thing out of the way. And maybe what I will do before signing off is I want to go through kind of the high level things that we want to change in Cake.Recipe v2 and make sure that everyone's on the same page. So Pascal, if you are there and you're listening, what would you see as the main things that we should be working on in terms of breaking things in Cake.Recipe? And I have a few in my head, but I want to make sure that everyone with a vested interest is on the same page. So I don't know if you wanted to put into the chat, or we could start triaging some issues, but I think it would be good to start accumulating some of that information. Abstraction of build server, absolutely. So let's start putting this somewhere. Let's maybe just create a top level issue. Let's create an epic. And let's have a Cake.Recipe 2.0.0 release roadmap. And in here we can link off to the individual issues. So you've got abstraction there of build servers, absolutely. One that I had was run on .NET Core. Now that would be an interesting one, but it's certainly something I think we should look into. I had another one which was use build data class everywhere. So that's a kind of a refactoring. Use build data class for all tasks. Update all tools. Yep, absolutely. Update all tools to latest version. So there's a lot of PRs already in flight for that. I want to move Git version out of setup into own task so it can be overridden. I think I did, Brett. I'm coming down with allergy. I genuinely thought that I was over it. My eldest, or rather my youngest, came home from nursery with what appeared to just be a runny nose. And she's been fine, but both my wife and I have come down with the plague. Let's call it that. And I thought I was over it. But it's not until I've actually started trying to talk for an extended period of time that it's starting to catch in the back of my throat a little bit. So I think I might get this list done and then call it a night, actually, because I'm not feeling too good. that was the one I was literally just about to write, Pascal. Change defaults. Change defaults for parameters and tools. So basically, having used Cake.Recipe in lots of places, there's lots of things that I set. So an example would be there is a parameter that says should run git version, and by default that's set to false. I think that should be defaulted to true, because the reason that was put in is because historically git version didn't run at all on anything other than Windows. But if you could force it in certain circumstances, it would work. So it's possible to override that on a per build basis. It's now at the point where git version is known to run everywhere, so that default needs to be changed. But changing that default value is something that would really only, or could really only occur in a major breaking change release. And that's kind of why I've been holding off on that. So that's that one. Now there was something else I was thinking about, which was, yes, update to latest recommended Cake version, absolutely. And the other one that I just had in my head that's just gone out again was make tool add-in versions configurable. Now, that one is, at the minute, Cake.Recipe pins to specific versions of tools and add-ins. And it does that because it's a best practice. We recommend that you always do that. But Cake.Recipe might not move along as quickly as you might want it to. So by allowing the setting of those tools and add-in versions to be a specific version that's further along, allows the person who's using it to have a little bit more control. And that was kind of proposed as a workaround specifically for Git version, to kind of pull in the latest version of Git version into Cake.Recipe. But Kim actually made the point that it would probably make sense to allow all tools and add-in versions to be configurable rather than being hard-coded. So maybe what we can do here is then look at some of the other things that. So the other one I don't know what I'm curious about your thought on this, Pascal. The Cake.Recipe started out as this attempt to be everything to everyone. Now, the downside of that is that there are lots of tools that you don't necessarily need if you're not using them. And the issue there is, well, why am I downloading downloading all of these tools? So let me come back to that, Jericho, and let me come back to that. That's not a. You're absolutely correct. What was I saying? I've completely lost my train of thought now. What was I talking about? Yeah, it's completely gone. Let's pick up on Jericho's point, and then I'll come back to my train of thought. So, yes, you're absolutely correct, Jericho. The add-in discoverer is updating those, but what I'm getting at is so that, as an example, Cake.Recipe at the minute is pinned to like version 3.5 of Git version. And it was done that way because there were major breaking changes in Git version. Now, some people want to pull in the latest version of Git version because they're happy with it. Now, we as Cake.Recipe might not be happy to pull that in. So although Admin Discoverer has come along and said, here's a new version of here's a new version of this tool that we're using, we still might not pull it in, even though Admin Discoverer told us about it. So by making the tools and add-in versions be overridable on a per project basis, it means that projects who definitely want that latest version of the external tool still can use it without being without having the version number forced upon them. So yes, absolutely, Cake.Add-in Discoverer does that, and that's great. But I still think I still think we need some flexibility there. But no, don't worry about it. I think it's more the case that I've still got. I'm not feeling very well. Right, but Pascal has reminded me what I was going to say. So at the minute, Cake.Recipe is trying to be everything to everyone. So in terms of, like, for example, unit testing, we have the capability to run X unit, we have the capability to do N unit, we have VS test, we have MS test, we have Fixe, we have all these things. Now, of the 116, sorry, I'll close it down. Of the 116 add-in packages, add-in repositories that use Cake.Recipe, I think it's fair to say that all of them use either X unit or N unit. None of them use Fixe. I think 2 of them use VS Test. So I'm tempted to pull out some of those things that were added into Cake.Recipe. What's your thoughts on that, Pascal, to kind of remove some of the functionality that we know that people aren't using? Now, we can do it in such a way that we could still allow overriding of the test task. So if you wanted to add back in Fixe testing, then you could do that by extending the acyclical graph, adding in a new dependency, or by simply overriding the test task to do the specific unit testing you wanted to do. But to answer Jericho's question, yes. So we still want Add-in Discoverer to do exactly what it's doing today. Absolutely. We still want that to happen. But let's take an example. If we look over here, then one of these was to update KickLink. So this was one that was found to say, here's a version, update KickLink to reference 3.1.0. But for reasons we as a project might not want to pull that in just yet. But someone who's using Cake.Recipe might want to do that. So we should be able to allow them to change the version number on a per project basis, but still have Add-in Discoverer come along behind the scenes and update Cake.Recipe, or suggest that Cake.Recipe use this latest version. But even that one, if we do upgrade and someone doesn't want to upgrade, they should be able to fall back to an earlier version. Now that has ramifications if we we add some functionality in that doesn't exist in an older version. But anyway, so that's that. Missing a solution for conditional add-in loading. I think making recipe modular is the way to go. So maybe something like core recipe script and then recipe modules, which, if also loaded, add additional functionality and bring in additional add-ins. Run that one past me again, Pascal. You're saying recipe modules? Are you meaning modules in the current context of Cake modules, or are you talking about something else? It sounds interesting, but it also seems like maybe a bit more work than I was necessarily expecting. No, individual recipe scripts. but that would be contingent on having conditional add-in. That would be conditional load preprocessor directives at that point then. Because otherwise, how would you prevent them being from added into the context? Because at the minute, I maybe see where you're going, but that would be interesting. So at the minute, when we do a reference to Cake.Recipe, it pulls in all .cake files within that NuGet package. So are you saying exclude those at the point of referencing? Think like having recipe, which defines tasks A, and then another package which adds another task B, which depends on A. So it would be up to the consumer of Cake.Recipe to add in preprocessor directives for both Cake.Recipe and then Cake.Recipe.testing and Cake.Recipe.analyze and Cake.Recipe. Whatever else. Or how do you stitch all those things together? I think I like what you're suggesting. That would potentially end up in a lot of chaining, though, right? Consumer then, yeah. I don't dislike it. I'm just concerned about the number of packages that might bring in. That's something to think about. I've just thought of something else that I'm going to add into this list. Don't delete .keg files at the end of build. Due to the fact that bakery doesn't like this. So I'm not saying, Pascal, that we shouldn't do it. I think which might you think about that a little bit more. So, anything else at a high level, Pascal or others? Anything else that the next version of Cake.Recipe should do? And then what we should do is, a lot of these may already be covered by issues, so I'll link off to those and look into the PRs for those. Let's have a quick look through here. Update fixa, update graph. See, that's an interesting one. That was from Jonathan. He was suggesting remove usage of xbuild, which I think makes sense. Let's add that one in. Remove usage of xbuild. This is no longer recommended. Now, the only problem with that one is that sort of flies in the face of this, which was to run solely on .NET Core. But I'm not sure if we're ready. What do you think, Pascal? Are we ready to say that Cake.Recipe will only build .NET Core projects going forward? I don't know if we're ready for that. There are at least a handful of those 116 projects in the Cake.Contrib organization that are still targeting full fat .NET framework, and they haven't been updated to use the new CSPod format. So don't. Can you elaborate? I think I gave a couple of options there. You don't think so? You don't think that we can remove MS Build completely from the equation and only run on .NET Core? Because at the minute we have build.run and build.run.NET Core. So there's two entry points that allow choosing which one to go into. So we should be able to yes. So that means, and that's what I'm getting at. So are we working on the assumption that projects going forward will be using the new CSPod format, which means that they can be built with .NET Build, and if that needs to shell out to MS Build to do its magic, then so be it. But we won't shell out to MS Build within Cake.Recipe. We'll only ever do a .NET Core build. It's kind of what I'm getting at. I think that's maybe a 3.0 as opposed to a 2.0. So I'll look through the rest of these pull requests. That's probably just a given. We're going to do that. JetBrains, disable graph. I think that kind of falls under the changing the default parameters we spoke about. Incubator, because that's all the open pull requests. So what do we have in? Maybe what we should do is start doing this as well. If we go ahead and have a new milestone, which is going to be 2.0.0, we can start adding in some of these issues into the milestone as well. Reference tools. Okay, so that's a 2.0. That's a 2.0. Those are all just going to go into there, I think. That's a 2.0. Do not restore packages during .NET Core. What's that one? That sounds like just a quick fix. Because packages are already restored. Yeah, I thought we were already doing that, but if not, we should do that. .NET Test is unable to run unit tests for full .NET Framework. Is that our fault or someone else's? When trying to run unit tests on Linux, and you have either Asian or just the .NET Core test utility is unable core repository, and the reason why this happens. As such, I suggest that when running on a Unix platform, only run .NET Core targeted frameworks using .NET tests. Do not run run the correct unit test executable for frameworks targeting the full one. That sounds like an interesting one. That sounds like a 2.0 though. Allow users to specify directory to restore packages to. Yes, I like that idea. Reference to tool, that's just a 2.0. List version of code.cov. Yeah. That's a dependable one. No, that's a Cake.Discoverer one. Yes, I agree. So let's move all of those to 2.0. Where did we get to? Here. Add support for code coverage using coverlet. So that's another example So at the minute we do coveralls and the other one, I forget what it's called, but adding in coverlet is a good suggestion, but that means bringing in a third code coverage utility. So again, should we just have one and allow it to be overridden on a per project basis? These are all things that need to be added in. Yep, support cake. Allows skipping of chocolate task. We should probably do that. Let's mark that as 2.0. What was the one from Miha? This one. Currently, the notifications won't be triggered if you get push succeeds, but build later fails somewhere. In my honest opinion, it would be better handled if notifications were triggered on NuGet task success regardless of final outcome. What are your thoughts on that one, Pascal? I tend to agree. If we succeed in pushing to NuGet, then we should trigger the notifications. But if for some reason something upload fails, then that won't go out. There's a point that artifact. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please? Come back to that one. Absolutely, it is. We should probably use banking logging, yes. Come back to that one. Bamboo support option for in-unit. Build breaking. What's that one? Let's do these ones. Something is published. Okay, good. So that's going to be a 2.0. It would be nice to have the option to have build breaking if certain conditions for issues are met, e.g. I agree. And that will come with adding in Cake.Issues, right? Are we still planning on doing that? Do you still want to do that, Pascal? And markdown linting. The adding of markdown linting, we get that for free now with adding in Cake.Issues, right? Yes. So in theory, we would get that for free, correct? So we would need to add in so we have a module that uses, we can use the npm module to install markdown lint CLI if we needed it, if we went down that route. Yeah, as long as Node is available on the machine. Well, we could use the Chocolatey module to install Node to make sure that it's there. So there's a chain of package managers that we can follow there. There's lots of things in here. Let's go back to the one that I was looking at there. This one here. Add cake issues pull request.appfair. Is that still a thing? Are we in a position to utilize that now, or are we still subject to the pull request not having the required information in order to write back to the GitHub PR? Where are we with this one? Ooh, okay then. Let's put that one in too then, shall we? Let's put that back in then. Let's put that in. Okay. I'm going to go to the end page and hope that there's only a few things in here. Should be able to not include source files on YAM. Okay, good. Add documentation. Add support for email notifications. I would like to see that in as well. That's one for Jericho if he's still on the line. We'll need to add in cake.email or cake.sendgrid or some ability to send email notifications. I think that would be a good one to have. Let's start at the bottom. Fix issue with Cake.Recipe on Travis. I'm so hoping that that's working. When running Cake.Recipe on Travis, the following error occurs. This is from 2017. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, I remember this one. Oh, I thought I fixed that. Fairly sure that issue's fixed. But I'm going to add it in anyway. I seem to remember that that's why we added in the optional add-in execution in the first place. But that will come out in the wash maybe with us breaking apart Cake.Recipe from the build provider. So I think we get some of that for free. I'm going to put in these two. Versioning. Add overridable build parameter task to generate versioning information. That's essentially what I've spoken about by allowing overriding of the... So git version currently executed as part of the setup. I think we should be able to do that as a task, which can be overridden, and then specify the version number. Include more details about the originating change set. What's that about? Here having access to following items as part of the build. Branch name. SHA. Commit date. Out of interest. Using Cake to generate a version file with this info. This is somewhat similar to how you're creating the version.cake file that is part of the build script. So there's... Nope. Huh? Let's copy this link from Pascal over here. I see. Report issues to app there. Gotcha. So that's the drawback to that, and why it's like that, is on something like Azure DevOps, you can add individual comments onto the lines in the commit. So that there's a little bit... So right now I would have to go into line 13 on that file to find it. Whereas on another CI system, then it would actually appear as a comment on here. Is that correct? So the issue that's being brought up here, I think, is related to... Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, that's what I thought. The issue that's being brought up here by this user is right now, when running Git version, there's not an easy way to get the JSON out when running on a build server, because it generates other output other than just a JSON file, so it's hard to get that data. Now, what we spoke about doing in Git version was, or the Git version usage in Cake, was to read the serialized JSON file so that we always emit back into the Git version class that comes as part of Cake, regardless of how it was being ran. Now that, I think, would give what this user is then after. But we might have to make some upstream changes to... Let's put that into V next just now. So it's there, but it's not there. Remove use of I definitely want to do that. That's been on my list for a long time. That's a 2.0. And I'm going to see what that is. Build.ps1 syntax error. I'm not aware of any syntax errors. I have downloaded the following from this repo. I have then modified appvar and gitignore with nothing else. But when I run... I've solved my problems. You must use PowerShell. Yada. I might have to go and respond to that one, because that one's... I should have responded to that one. Option to output n-unit test results. Let's see what this one does. Error when running Tube Finder. I need to speak to Rod. Rodney's got this one, I think, already as part of Cake.Xamarin.Recipe. I don't think we need that one anymore. I'm going to close that one out. I'm going to close that. I don't think I want that one. Error when running Tube Finder. Here is the output. Spec code. Sure. I think we fixed this one, didn't we? Get the same error. I think we fixed that. I'm going to close this one out. I am fairly sure that this has been fixed. You should, Stevie. You should. I'm in no way biased in any way, shape, or form. But I like it. You will see it popping up more and more on chocolatey stuff as we start to reconcile the builds. So, yeah, maybe useful to have a play with it at some point. I would imagine you're using either Saki or Invoke build for some of your stuff. I would have thought. As such, I am going to close this off. Let me know if still an issue. Really? Why? Genuine question. Genuine question. Interesting. Okay. Fair, I guess. Fair. Remove There's one for Jericho. What do we do here? In PR, we implemented a workaround for a known issue in open cover, specifically run open cover with old style parameter. February. Project without no cell switch. I'm going to add a comment here. Jericho, is this still an issue? That's a comment. Issues. I'm going to have to go and read. I think I've read that blog post, Stevie. I think I have. Oh, hold on. There are a couple of links I need to bring in here. 61. Support for IL merge. It would be nice if there's an option to IL merge output. Hold on, what? Oh, or a similar solution to IL merge. It would be nice if there was an option to IL merge build output. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. So at the minute, Jamie has figured out how to do this with IL repack. So it would be a IL repack rather than IL merge. Now he has that working in at least one of his add-ins, where he is adding the necessary IL merge, IL repack command into the CS project file, so it's done as part of the MS build. But I agree. I think this would be a nice addition to 2.0 to include that as part of the execution of the build script. Now, what that will likely need is a list of assemblies to include as part of the IL repack and ones to exclude, or vice versa. So I agree that that should go in. Now I'm getting lost in all these open issues. A folder has been created called, but it doesn't look like it's being used anywhere. I'm fairly sure that is being used. It would have been, but it doesn't look like it's been used anywhere. Well, they're I'm going to have to look at that one. Let's bring up Stevie's. Is this the blog post that I've written about? Or I've read about, sorry. Oh, this is not the blog post that I thought. I'm going to have to read this one properly. I think I was thinking about your other one. Oh, this is the new blog post. Is it? Where's the date? Where's the date for this blog post, Stevie? When did you write it? Oh, there we go. Written on 30. Oh, that's a new one. I haven't read this one. I'm going to have to go back and read this one. Your Twitter account looks like it has a typo. What does that mean? I'm not sure what Rob was referring to there. Or is he talking about the capital I in... Is he talking about the capital I? Or is he talking about something else? Demystified. Last paragraph. Oh, I see what he's talking about. I see it now. Yeah, you should fix that. Yeah, I'm going to read that because I haven't seen that one. Port issues to app pair. So those are some of these things. I'm starting to get lost. That one we added to V next. That one I'm closing off. Access to path denied.NET test. We have set up a new local and blah blah blah. When applying the following configuration works, but I think the exceptions stay a little vague. Access to path is denied. So what was the problem? When applying the following configuration works, but I think the exception stays a little vague. Maybe because the dot was concatenated with. I should probably look at that a little bit. Just pull that one in. See if we can't fix that one. Not sure of that one. Let's put that in V next for now, because I'm not convinced by that one. Any objections if I change this to IL repack rather than IL merge? Let's say save. Have a look at what flips Jamie has done on his add-in projects to get this to work within this build. Okay, so that's that. Can I filter by ones that issues with no milestone? Here we go. Start on. I don't know. Publish all artifacts to AppFair for PRs. Yes, I think that would make sense to Pascal. Add environment variables for my get feed URL. I think I'm going to delete that one, because overall I'm going to say edit. What are your thoughts on this one? Remove mention of my get from everywhere. Don't think we should couple directly to my get. Instead, name this as alternative NuGet source or something similar, which could then be my get if required. So we'll keep NuGet as the ultimate source, because 9 times out of 10 that's where people are publishing to. But not everyone wants to use MyGet. I mean, the reason that I was toying with things was because I wanted to push to GitHub package repository for my pre-releases. And it's possible just by abusing the MyGet variables, but I think calling them MyGet is part of the problem. So I'm going to go and close this one out, because I don't think we need that one anymore. File configuration of which output files to copy. Right now, all files from build output folder are copied to publish folder. That's a big ask. I'm going to put that in V next. Think about it. I seem to recall this one, Pascal, if you're still around, but I think we should. Okay, I'm saying that that's exactly the issue, so we should fix that. Enable option to build source packages. What's that? With the latest changes I added in there. Oh, we should definitely do this. We should definitely do this, and I think we get this for free now. I'll have to speak to Kim about it. But in his most recent add-in, Cake.Warp, he gets that for free, and it kind of just works. So we just need to make sure that it's. I still think this one's a good idea, so I'm going to add in this. Where did I see that? That's a Rodney one. That one needs to be in. Let's do that. Why was Rodney saying we should do this? So the Cake.Recipe can load all add-ins. I don't think it's possible right now. So this one is related to that. So I would like to get to a point where we can do that. Now, it might not necessarily be if we go ahead with this, guidance would likely be to use cake.tool rather than core CLR, but I think we should still try to be able to do this. Okay. Include all available options commented out setup.cake. What does this mean? I think we should definitely do that. We should definitely do that. Let's refresh this. Add support for ASP.NET MVC web projects. And I tend to agree with what Kim said there, to the extent that we have now got cake code. Let's have a look. We have now got a few recipes in here. Yeah. And I'm going to say to Thomas Adams, that's an older issue. Sorry about the delay in replying to this. I tend to agree with Worm here, and I have done the same thing for when doing VS Code extension packages. I would suggest that if this is still something you are interested in, that you look to create a standalone recipe for this. Some examples can be found here. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. Copy, paste, close. Okay, back to issues. Back to issues with no milestone. That kind of has to be Publish documentation step, report success. Currently, there seems to be no support for optionally setting a flag in unit test execution to produce a in-unit v2 report. This breaks bamboo use due to this workaround. If it's acceptable, we would like to add an optional flag. Sorry for not getting back to you sooner about this. Have been working on obtaining some upstream dependencies before doing much work on Cake.Recipe. This has now come to an end, and we can focus on making some changes. I think this is a good suggestion. If you would like to contribute bullet PR, then we could certainly get this added in. So I'm going to say comment, and we'll put this into 2.01. Stage, however, listen to Says Matthias had a look at this one. He didn't come back with that one. Let's leave that as a Phoenix then. At the minute. Where does that get us to? Does that at least get us to a point where everything is... I just need to apply that one. So, okay. Well, let's do Admiring Worm. Let's include Scott Mackay. Let's include Jericho. Let's include Pascal. Who else would be interested? Here is a top level overview of important things I think we need to handle in the next release of Cake.Recipe. Some of these and others are already included as issues. Milestones 2.0. So copy. Issues. On the next milestone. But I wanted to capture the highlights here. Have I missed anything else that we should be looking at in the next release? Comment. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to do tonight. I mean, I've been coughing and sneezing and things, so I'm glad that we've got through this at the very least, which is to kind of capture what is going to be included in the next release. But I don't think I'm actually going to do anything. There are a ton of open PRs that I think a lot of them can just be pulled in, and they are associated with this kind of top level thing that we're trying to achieve, which would be good. But I'm not going to pull them in just now. I'll be honest. I don't want to. This one I think is a great idea, by the way. Has he actually done it on all of them? Oh, look at that. It's a great idea. Great idea. We should definitely do that throughout. If this doesn't do all the tasks, then we should be doing this everywhere. That's Kim's one. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it a night. Pascal and Jericho, if you're still on, if you could have a look at this and let me know if there's anything else that you think at a high level we need to address. I'll probably update this issue to link off to the individual issues so that we kind of capture this as the kind of the epic, the kind of project, if you like. Maybe I should have done a project. We'll work with this just now. And yeah, I think that's it. So apologies for all the coughing and sneezing and things. I honestly thought I was over the flu, but it doesn't look like I am. So if all else goes to plan, I'll be back on Friday for lunchtime stream, and I'll probably start pulling in some of these PRs and start looking at starting to break things. And let's just check to see that build actually succeeded. So we did make one change, which was to start building the next version of Cake.Recipe, which it is correctly doing that, so that's good. And yeah, that's about all I have. So I'm gonna go now. Stevie, I'll give you a shout, yes, and I'll see what you've got to tell me. But everyone else, I'm gonna go. Talk to you later.